Hello YouTube, this is Bard of Schwa, and I'm just responding to some claims as a response to Imam Ibrahim Noonan, with whom I've engaged a few times now on Twitter on various subjects related to the divide between Islam and Christianity. Since Twitter limits characters and doesn't always allow for in-depth conversation, I've decided to move my commentary to YouTube in an effort to be a little bit more thorough. I'm not going to cover everything that we've sort of engaged over in this video, but I would like to respond to some of his views on John 8 and maybe a few other small things as well. And I might make more videos in response to him as well on separate elements of the discussion, but I do want to focus, at least really briefly, at John 8, starting in verse 12. Before I start reading the text, I want to emphasize some key issues in this text. Number 1, where does Jesus' authority come from? 2, how can anyone know? 3, who is he really? And 4, how does he relate to a person's salvation? Note, before I read the text again, over and over and over again, you're going to notice, in this text, and really in the whole of the Gospel of John, Jesus calls God his Father, making himself equal with God, according to John 5:19. But Islam teaches in Surah 9:88 through 93 that no one can call God Father, and the highest relationship anyone can have with God is a master-servant relationship. It's not as if, in the case of Ahmadi that always said, God has sons by the tons. Well, not in the sense that Jesus claimed to be God's son, according to the Quran. In light of that, no matter how you slice it, the Jesus of John 8 contradicts the Quran very strongly, and we're going to see a little bit why and how. So starting at verse 12, consider the following. Again Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. So the Pharisees said to him, You are bearing witness about yourself. Your testimony is not true. They see it as a circular argument. They think, well, he's just asking us to take his word for it. And Jesus says, no. Even if I do bear witness about myself, my testimony is true, for I know where I came from and where I am going. But you do not know where I come from or where I am going. You judge according to the flesh, I judge no one. Yet even if I do judge, my judgment is true. It is not I alone who judge, but I and the Father who sent me. In your law it is written that the testimony of two people is true. I am the one who bears witness about myself, and the Father who sent me bears witness about me. They said to him, therefore, Where is your Father? Jesus answered, You neither know me nor my Father. If you knew me, you would know my Father also. These words he spoke in the treasury, and as he taught in the temple, but no one arrested him, because his hour had not yet come. So again he said to them, I am going away, and you will seek me, and you will die in your sin. Where I am going, you cannot come. So the Jews said, Will he kill himself, since he says, Where I am going, he cannot come? He said to them, You are from below, I am from above. You are of this world, I am not of this world. Notice, Jesus draws a distinction between his origins and theirs. What does that tell us about his nature, his personhood, who he is? He says that he's not of this world. Was Muhammad of this world? Are mere prophets of this world? I doubt it. But he goes on and says, I told you that you would die in your sins, for unless you believe that I am he, the word there is ego eimi, by the way, you will die in your sins. So they said to him, Who are you? Jesus said to them, Just what I have been telling you from the beginning. I have much to say to you and much to judge, but he who sent me is true, and I declare to the world what I heard from him. Now notice, earlier he just said, Unless you believe that I am, you will die in your sins. Notice, Abraham didn't say that. Moses didn't say that. No previous prophet to Jesus made himself a key element of anybody's salvation. In fact, Abraham and Moses, so far as we can tell, had no idea that there even was an afterlife. Moses mentions nothing about it. Abraham mentions nothing about it. Yet Jesus says, not only is there an afterlife, but you need to believe that he is the Son of Man in order to get there. What other prophet, what previous prophet could have said that? That's a key question that is worth asking. Just what I've been telling you from the beginning. I have much to say about you and much to judge, but he who sent me is true, and I declare to the world what I have heard from him. They did not understand that he had been speaking to them about the Father. So Jesus said to them, When you have lifted up the Son of Man, then you will know that I am he, and that I do nothing on my own authority, but speak just as the Father taught me. Now, That's a phrase, and phrases like it will come up again, and I want to talk about them shortly, because that sort of phrase, if it had been reversed, would deny the doctrine of the Trinity. I'm going to read it again. I do nothing on my own authority, but speak as the Father taught me. If that phrase were inverted, it would deny the doctrine of the Trinity. Why? Because then Jesus would be saying, I do something on my own authority and not as the Father taught me. If Jesus is doing something other than or contrary to what the Father is doing and acting toward, then the Trinity cannot be true, because then there's no longer one God with one purpose. This doesn't deny the doctrine of the Trinity, unlike what most Muslims seem to think. It actually affirms it, and we're going to see this kind of phrase pop up again and again in this passage. Verse 29, and he who sent me is with me. He has not left me alone, for I always do the things that are pleasing to him. As he was saying these things, many believed in him. So Jesus said to the Jews who had believed in him, if you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. They answered him, we are offspring of Abraham, and have never been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say you will become free? Jesus answered them, truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who practices sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not remain in the house forever, as the Son remains forever. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. I know that you are offspring of Abraham, yet you seek to kill me because my word finds no place in you. I speak of what I have seen with my father, and you do what you have heard from your father. They answered him, Abraham is our father. Jesus said to them, if you were Abraham's children, you would be doing the works that Abraham did, but now you seek to kill me, a man who has told the truth that I heard from God. This is not what Abraham did. You are doing the works your father did. They said to him, we were not born of sexual immorality. We have one Father, even God. Jesus said to them, if God were your father, you would love me, for I came from God and I am here. Again, this is no problem for a Trinitarian. Of course Jesus came from God, and yet is God himself. Why? Because if that were not true, then the Father would not be God, and that would not be a Trinitarian doctrine. That would not be a Trinitarian framework. I came not of my own accord, but he sent me. Again, if Jesus were to come of his own accord and not sent by the Father, then that would mean that Jesus and God are separate, warring gods, and that is not the doctrine of the Trinity. He has to have been sent by the Father in order for the doctrine of the Trinity to be true. Why do you not understand what I say? Verse 43. It is because you cannot bear to hear my word. You are of your father the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. But because I tell the truth, you do not believe me. Which one of you convicts me of sin? If I tell the truth, why do you not believe me? Whoever is of God hears the words of God. The reason why you do not hear them is that you are not from God. This is the key part, verse 48 through to 59. The Jews answered him, are we not right in saying that you are a Samaritan and have a demon? Jesus answered, I do not have a demon, but I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. Yet I do not seek my own glory. There is one who seeks it, and he is the judge. Now this verse I want to zero in on, because Imam Noonan has brought it up a couple times. If Jesus were to seek his own glory and not the Father's glory, again, that would be a violation of Trinitarian doctrine. Why? Because God is worthy of all glory. He cannot be robbed of glory by a true worshiper of him. If you truly worship God, you are not robbing him of glory. So Jesus has to give the Father glory, because the Father is God just as much as the Son is God. But notice here, there is one who seeks Jesus' glory, and he is the judge. Who? Who is this one that seeks Jesus' glory? Who wants to glorify Jesus? It's the Father. Yet Isaiah 42:8 says that God does not share glory with anyone. What do we make of this? Well, the only clear harmonization of those two texts is this, that the Son is one with the Father, and therefore is deserving of the Father giving the Son glory. It's exactly what Trinitarians believe. Notice, truly, truly, I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he will never see death. The Jews react to this very specifically. They say to him, now we know that you have a demon. Abraham died, as did the prophets, yet you say, if anyone keeps my word, he will never taste death. So Abraham died, the other prophets died, and they see that claim that anyone who hears Jesus' words will never taste death, his word will never taste death, they see that as a claim to be superior to other prophets, including Abraham. Because Abraham never promised that of himself, and Moses never promised that of himself, but Jesus did. They continue on, verse 53. Are you greater than our father Abraham, who died, and the prophets died? Who do you make yourself out to be? Jesus answered him, if I glorify myself, my glory is nothing. Again, that would be circular. You can glorify yourself all you want, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you deserve it. It is my Father who glorifies me, of whom you say he is our God. Because yes, the Father is indeed God. But you have not known him. I know him. If I were to say that I do not know him, I would be a liar like you. There you go. If Jesus were to deny his relationship with the Father, he would not be telling the truth, and he would not truly be the Son of God. The Trinitarian doctrine would not be true. But it is true because Jesus says he glorifies the Father and the Father glorifies him. That's exactly what we should be expecting as Trinitarians. But you have not known him. I know him. If I were to say that I do not know him, I would be a liar like you, but I do know him and I keep his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced that he would see my day. He saw it and was glad. What do the Jews hear this as? They hear this as Jesus claiming to have seen and known Abraham, and they ask him about his age. You are not yet 50 years old and you've seen Abraham? And Jesus doesn't say, oh no, I know this because God told me, because I'm a prophet. I didn't actually pre-exist Abraham. I'm just a prophet and God told me this. That's not what Jesus says. He says, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. So they hear him as saying, I saw Abraham. I've seen Abraham. And he doesn't correct them on that. He says, and he doesn't say, yes, I've learned this from God because God saw it and he told me. No, he says, I pre-existed Abraham. Now, Imam Noonan has said that Jesus is saying that God foreknew Jesus as more than Abraham. I'm actually not going to even twist his words here. Let's be clear on what he did say. Just hang on. I'm going to find it here. Hang on. So he says, Jesus is saying, I existed in the plan of things before Abraham. Does that mean, well, God foreknew me before he foreknew Abraham? Because that doesn't make sense. If that were the case, then God would not have always known all things. That destroys God's omniscience. Does he mean that Jesus is more important in the scheme of salvation than Abraham is? Because that would deny one of the 6 articles of Islamic faith, the idea that all prophets are to be believed in and regarded as equal in the eyes of Muslims. Jesus clearly denies that here. He seems to claim some kind of superiority to Abraham. So what then does he mean? Well, Imam Noonan is right when he points out ego eimi in this verse. He says, before Abraham was, I am. Notice, that isn't before Abraham was, I was. He's drawing very specific attention to Exodus 3:14 and the other uses of the I am name in the Old Testament. What was God saying when he said, I am that I am? I am self-existent. I am not reliant on any creature. Jesus is saying the exact same thing. He claims to pre-exist Abraham. He claims to be outside of time, and his grammar especially denies the idea that he is a mere creature. And how do the Jews respond to that? They pick up stones to throw at him, but Jesus says, no, I'm not saying I pre-existed anyone. I'm not saying I pre-existed Abraham. I'm just saying that I existed, God foreknew me in the plan of things before he foreknew Abraham. That's not what he says. No, he doesn't correct them. He doesn't say, I'm just using a metaphor here. No, he hides himself because they understood exactly what he was talking about. This claim, before Abraham was, I am, warrants for the Jews the stoning for blasphemy. They see this as a blasphemy that Jesus specifically speaks and therefore deserving of death. Jesus doesn't correct them. He hides. And in fact, this is not the first time where they see him. This is not the last time, rather, where they see him as deserving of death because he says something like this. Again, I listed Mark chapter 14 or John 10:30 or a number of other places where this sort of thing warrants Jesus' death. In light of that, I have to wonder, why do Muslims, and Imam Noonan specifically, say that Jesus never claimed divinity. These are words that only a divine figure could utter, and yet he uses them over and over again. I would suggest that the only reason that Muslims do not see this as a claim to divinity is because they have the Quran, and the Quran says that, well, Jesus can't have claimed any divinity, so that doesn't work. But the fact is that it does work, and Muslims need to reckon with the fact that Jesus says things in the Gospel of John and elsewhere in all 4 Gospels that no Muslim could significantly and meaningfully accept. We'll have more to say, but I'm going to leave it there. Thanks very much for listening. Imam Noonan, I appreciate your engagement, and I look forward to a response. Thanks very much. Bye.